With week 5 officially in the books in the National Football League, there have been several teams that have started to separate themselves from the pretenders and place themselves on the levels of the contenders. Meanwhile, there are still teams looking to pick up their first win, while other teams saw some major losses upon their victories, and yet some had even more losses that could possibly make their playoff hopes slim, leaving them with an abundance of questions. Can they respond? Those questions will be answered and more on this edition of Gridiron Gab Pro Style. Welcome back, Gabbers. Thank you guys so much for joining us here on this edition of Gridiron Gab Pro Style. Of course, you're gabbing with the one and only Mr. CeeLo. And hope you guys are doing great. We are at the midpoint of the week, and so many of you are like me, wanting to see a little bit more. So that's where your boy Mr. CeeLo is here, wanting to give you guys that lowdown. While some of you have already seen enough analysis, and some of you want to see a little bit more. Some of these games I can't give you a whole lot of analysis on because I can't watch them all at this point because the college game is so loaded, guys. And on Sundays, I'm only limited to see so many games. So what I do is I watch a lot of the highlights and try to go back and watch a few of these games. So listen, there's a couple of these games I go and I watch on Red Zone, so I'm able to pick up some aspects of the game. So guys, look, I'm not going to sit here and pretend I watch them all. Even the guys that do they sit and say they watch it all, and they don't. But I'm not going to sit here and make excuses, but we are going to go and we are going to get into what was an exciting Thursday night game in which, guys, I'm not even going to sit here and lie to you. When I saw this game and I saw how Seattle was just, many of you that watched this game, more than likely are going to say that Marvin Harrison Jr. was the perfect personification of this game. And I totally agree with you because with him having the drops and the nightmares drops that he's been having throughout his early on career, and then those rearing their ugly head yet again in this game, and then for his redemption to be so sweet, and being a huge reason why the Arizona Cardinals were able to get this thing back to where it was and fall later on to a game winner. But I look at this game and I say to myself, even Stephen A. Smith started to question, is the Kyler Murray era over? I don't agree with that. I think ultimately when you look at where this team is, both interceptions were at the hands, or Marvin Harrison was the intended receiver. It looked like he stopped on one, and the other one was he got a hand on it and couldn't bring it in. So while he had 6 grabs for 66 yards and that one touchdown, he also had a crucial interception that cost the Cardinals. And I think the other thing is when you start pinning everything on the quarterback, I think what's so important to remember is, yes, even though the quarterback's record is just like a pitcher's, you need help. But you also have to understand that the quarterbacks don't play defense either. We look over on the other side, and Sam Darnold with 18 for 26, 242 yards, and a score. and he wasn't sacked but 3 times. Kyler Murray was sacked 6 times. Now, granted, a lot of times Murray is sacked because he's a lot like Lamar Jackson. You know, he tries to extend plays and make things happen, and ultimately it costs you. Where you look at it and you say to yourself, okay, yeah. But ultimately, Cardinals were given a gift when Kobe Bryant picked off a pass and he got licked pretty good and put the ball back on the ground and gave it back to the Cardinals. So, in a sense, this is what I'm seeing from the Arizona Cardinals. Now, I know Seahawks fans are going to be like, well, you're just talking about the Cardinals. Well, I'm not saying this was all about them, but I'm going to say the Cardinals have to figure out a way to run the football. And 17 carries, 89 yards ain't going to cut it. I get it. Murray accounted for 8.2 yards a carry that picks up that 5.2 yards. I get it. Ultimately, this team has to figure out. It has to figure out how to run the football more efficiently. Because you got 12 carries, 48 yards. That's still 4 yards a pop. So, you've got to figure out how to run the ball. You can't sit here and just get into a hole. I'm a firm believer, you guys, and I know a lot of you are not going to like this. Even if you get behind and running is your best friend, you still need to figure out how to run it. Go no huddle and run. But you cannot. There are some quarterbacks, no matter how good they are, they don't need to throw 40 times a game to win. Look at how many times Darnold threw. He threw less than 30 times, and the numbers were way better. Murray completed 27 passes, and they got him 200 yards in this game. Sam Darnold completed 18, 242. See the difference? Now, I will say this. When you look at how the distribution went, Jackson Smith-Njigba had a 36-yard long. He had 4 catches for 79 yards. Cooper Kupp had 4 for 26. Elijah Arroyo had 2 for 44. That was it. Now, you had a couple of other guys in there, of course. But for the most part, they didn't throw the ball that much. Looking at 35 totes, 155 yards. I say this all the time, you guys. In the NFL, if you can run the football on the road 9 times out of 10, you're going to be the victor. Seattle, in my opinion, just dictated the pace of this game. Like I said, they picked up 6 sacks in this game, led by Leonard Williams, whose name was called so many times in this Thursday night matchup. It was just fun listening to Kirk Herbstreit talk about this guy. It was a lot of fun. And then, Uchenna Nwasu had 2 sacks for the Seahawks. My apologies. So you had 2 guys that had 3.5 sacks between them. And then, of course, you got Josh Jobe, Drake Thomas with 1, Ernest Jones IV, and Devin Witherspoon picked up a half sack. So you saw this Seattle defense just very creative, doing what they do, making plays, and ultimately that's what the Seahawks want to do. They want to be aggressive, and ultimately they were able, in my opinion, when you look at the end of the game, when Arizona had pulled so much of the momentum back from this game, you can look at it and you can ask a question: who wanted it more? And the reality of it is, you can't say which team wanted it more. The truth of the matter is, I looked at this game and I said straight up, the Seattle Seahawks almost let this thing get away. Almost let it get away. But looking at this fourth quarter, when you see how Seattle was up 20-6, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I was gone after 17-3. After I saw them get a field goal, Seattle being them, and all of a sudden you see Arizona get the touchdown that put them back in this game, or you could argue it wasn't, with about 5:40 left in this game, making it 20-13, and then of course Seattle missing that field goal, which really would have put this game out of reach. And then you see it was a 53-yarder, so arguably, but then the thing is, I get tired of hearing guys saying that a 53-yarder is a normal kick. Look, if you ain't never kicked a field goal before, there are a lot of factors that come into it. You can tweak your foot just a little bit from that distance, can be the difference between it going through the uprights with a little shade to this side to it being going all the way to the outside the other upright. So I'm not gonna sit here and criticize the kicker because I can't do it. I'm not gonna do that. But then you see Kyler Murray and company go into that fast mode, and where we get to see this offense really come to light. And yeah, we saw Marvin Harrison do his thing. Again, it seemed like he was getting more and more confidence. And we saw this last year. We thought this was going to be the time that Marvin Harrison was finally going to wake up. So ultimately, I hope that's what happened. But as we saw with the Kyler Murray pass for a touchdown, like I said, I disagree with Stephen A. Smith. I don't think that this is it for the Cardinals. I know this is a tough loss, but I got to give my props to Seattle. They're doing their thing. I think they're playing great. I think Sam Darnold's doing what he does, and Seattle's doing a great job to keep it where he doesn't have to overthink. He doesn't have to overdo it. He's just able to be who he is and play within the confines of what he does. And it's paying dividends for this football team, and it's going to continue to pay dividends as long as the Seattle brass understands what Sam Darnold is and what he's not. In the game over the pond, Pittsburgh 24, Vikings 21. And believe it or not, guys, this was one of those games where I actually did not catch it. I was too busy shooting the show, editing the show, and it passed me by, y'all. I'm not even going to lie. If any of you watched it, please make sure you go and criticize me for not watching this game. But I did watch a lot of the highlights and watched a lot of condensed of certain sections of the game, and it looks so much like Aaron Rodgers is slowly starting to get his rapport with his receivers. But the biggest thing was Kenneth Gainwell coming out there and nearly putting up 100 yards and 2 scores. To me, he is the difference maker in this offense. Now, I can't hate on Carson Wentz. 350, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions, but those 2 interceptions are huge. He took 6 sacks on the day as well. So when you look at the way this game was played, it was basically DK Metcalf hitting a big one for 80 yards. He ended up with 5 for 126 and a score. That one being that 80-yarder. And really, if you take that off the board, really, Rodgers was pretty average. But you could say that about a lot. You could take the 81-yarder Jordan Addison had with Minnesota, and that could be an argument. But then again, he's still going to be well over 200 yards for the game. But Justin Jefferson was 10 for 126. Jordan Addison, 4 for 114. Xavier Scott, 6 for 43 and a score. So if you're Pittsburgh, yes, you had the 2 interceptions, but you also got to look at it from the standpoint that Addison and Jefferson had big games. I mean, we can sit here and we can argue all day and say, okay, Minnesota scored 15 points in the fourth quarter, and it looked like this was they were playing, runaway. And I agree. Look, I understand. I get it. I know how it looks. After the interception, they go down and they scored a touchdown. They get the ball back 3 plays. And then with the field goal, you're basically up 18 points. And they're playing catch up with 11-18 remaining. And then just that fast, you look at it, you're just 3 minutes and some change after this game, after this possession, and boom, it's 24-14. You're sitting there thinking, well, do I need to worry? But then when Pittsburgh runs 9 plays at 3:41, gets all the way down. Now, to me, this was I thought Tomlin made a huge mistake when I saw this. I was like, just kick the field goal. I mean, if you kick the field goal, it makes it 27-14. And you basically saying in a nutshell, they're going to score two touchdowns and win the game? Because at that time, it was 4:14 left. Come on now. Come on, Tomlin. You know better than that. And then, of course, they go 7 plays, 99 yards. I get the thought process. Because if you don't get it, they're going to have to drive 90-plus yards, and which they did. And they did it in no time. And then, of course, coupled with great plays by Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, along with Carson Wentz, you're able to get in the end zone with right at 2:51. Excuse me, with right at 2 minutes and 8 seconds left. So here you are now. You're at 24-21, and ultimately you go in a position where the Minnesota Vikings get the football back after a 3-and-out by the by the Steelers. And ultimately, you only get 12, So, and it looked to me more along in that drive, it looked to me as if Wentz was not prepared to throw to anybody other than Addison and Justin Jefferson. It looked pretty redonkulous, if you will. And, the question I ask is, I get it. This guy's shown up very late. It makes me wonder, is Adam Thielen happy about his role? I mean, I just want to know, because he would have had a major role in Charlotte. Or maybe he just didn't want to do that anymore. He didn't want to have the pressures of competing. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm just wondering if that's what he wanted. Because, 2 catches, 11 yards. Great game by Pittsburgh. Great comeback by Minnesota. And I don't know. I'm not hearing a lot of rumblings about whether J.J. McCarthy is going to be back. But I can tell you right now, if Wentz gets the mistakes down, they got a good chance to make some noise. But ultimately, this running game is just non-existent. Jordan Mason is 16 carries, 57 yards, 3.6 yards. To me, it'd be okay, but ultimately, you got to run the football more. And I'm a firm believer, you got to run the ball when you're down, too. Now, I'm not saying when you're in the fourth quarter and you're down double digits. Don't think I'm saying that. I'm not saying that. But Aaron Rodgers and this running game, if this running game for the Pittsburgh Steelers gets on track, this is going to be problems for a lot of teams. I think with Lamar Jackson being out, and I think with him being out and uncertain because a hamstring is nothing to play with. But I'm getting ahead of myself. But Steelers go to 3-1. Vikings fall to 2-2. The previously winless Giants 21 and the previously undefeated Los Angeles Chargers 18. In what was a somewhat memorable day for rookie quarterback Jackson Dart, who was named starter midway through the week, and named starter for the rest of the season the very next day. Now, looking at this game and what it meant, I think ultimately you can look at this game and say to yourself, a lot of the reason why Jackson Dart became the starter was because they saw what they had in Cam Skattebo. And needless to say, when you sit and you look at this, the way this Giants team has started to play, you got to throw in what Dart was able to do on the ground. 10 carries, 54 yards, and a touchdown. Skattebo, 25 carries, 79 yards. And you have to throw in the effect of what Skattebo is also going to bring to go with Jackson Dart. So he did get sacked 5 times. So really a New York offensive line that has not been exceptionally good. That is the other reason I was not a big fan of starting him against this aggressive Charger defense. But ultimately, when you can accomplish some of the things that this defense was able to accomplish, which was intercept Justin Herbert twice and then keep him in check, because lately he's looked like he's been on fire. And, when you can ultimately break this Chargers team's spirit with Justin Herbert. Now, what's insane is I didn't understand why the Chargers went away from doing the one thing. Now, I will say this. Outside of the 54-yarder that he had, you would have to say that they had, on 11 carries, they had 60 yards, but they were very successful running the football. Herbert had a 24-yarder. I mean, the only 2 guys on this Chargers team that ran the football was Hampton and Herbert. That was astonishing to me. And, of course, you had Herbert go 23 of 41, 203 yards. Quentin Johnson had 98 yards on 8 receptions and a score. Keenan Allen, Omarion Hampton, and even Ladd McConkey were quiet in this game. Exception quiet. And that's a tribute to not only the New York Giants secondary, but it's also a huge tribute to what the defense for the New York Giants were able to do. Once again, Brian Burns picking up a sack in this game. The guy is just killing it. Kayvon Thibodeaux had one. I think ultimately Abdul Carter is just eating up so much attention that this is where Kayvon Thibodeaux and Brian Burns especially has benefited so much. You know, for a guy that so many people in Charlotte, of course, you know, coming from Carolina, this guy's got 5 sacks in 4 games. He's balling out. And I'm going to be honest, this defense for the Giants is just it. Muasu has 6 tackles in this game. Flott had 5 tackles. Burns had 5 of his own and had 4 hits on the quarterback. Thibodeaux had 3 of his own. Abdul Carter had 5. I mean, you think about it, that's over 10 pops on Justin Herbert. Of course, he's going to get 2 interceptions. He's going to throw 2 interceptions. You know, I mean, you can only take so much of a beating back there, but then, and to Jackson Dart's credit, he didn't throw it away either, but then he also only threw for 111 yards. But that 54 yards on the ground was absolutely massive. Now, we can sit here and talk about what the Giants did correctly, but they're going to have to figure out what life is going to be like without superstar wide receiver Malik Nabers, as he was reported to have a knee injury, and he will be done for the remainder of the season. And this is gut-wrenching to a New York offense that seemed like it was just about to make their stride when this injury took place. This is absolutely devastating to their offense, because ultimately he is one of the star players of this unit, and you definitely do not want to see a guy of his caliber, who is a step ahead of almost every receiver on this. You definitely don't want to see him, a player of his caliber, out of the lineup. And like I said, the Giants placed him on injured reserve, and this is a huge blow to this offense. But I think Jackson Dart's a huge step in the right direction. But as I said, you can't say much about the Chargers. They just, the mistakes. And look, you can't go on the road, I don't care how bad the opponent is, and expect to win a game if you're not going to take care of the football. And obviously, you know, Jackson Dart was in his first start, and he made good on it. And the defense was behind him. And, of course, you know, Daboll made it simple. And it worked to their benefit, as the Giants were able to pull out their first victory over an undefeated Chargers team. Next, we got a game that was a real sleeper. So, you know, my thing is, when I watch a game, I like to see certain things. And, of course, many of you have heard the comments that Cam Ward made after this game. And I've heard so many people giving this guy so much heat about how he said it. No, this is a guy that wants to win. I don't have a problem with you using certain profanities if you're angry and you like to win. There are guys out there that look, you get people that, oh, he doesn't care. He's blah, 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 blah. Look, this dude cares. And if you're going to be pissed off at him because he's venting his frustration, you know, he's running as much as CJ Stroud. Fortunately for Stroud, he's getting enough protection that he's able to throw the football some. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if you can get a guy who can ultimately throw the football some, I mean, if he can throw the football some, that's better than nothing at all, as we will see with Cincinnati. You know, I really feel horrible for this Tennessee Titans quarterback, because, like I said, people expect greatness when they see a guy that's just absolutely tearing it up in college, and then he gets here. And what people don't understand is, when you're the number 1 pick, 90% of the time you're going to a bad team. You're going to a bad team. Now, very rarely do you go to a team where it's simply, we lost 2 of our best players and it was a result of this. You know, it's got to be better if you're a Tennessee Titans fan. And the reality of it is, their offensive line is not giving them much help. The defense is okay. It's not absolutely stinking up the place. A lot of people will say it is, but realistically, it's not stinking up the place that bad. I know people are going to say, oh, they give up 26 points. Yeah, But you got Arden Key picking up a sack. Jeffrey Simmons still putting up good numbers. And then they actually got the Stroud 5 times. And realistically, Stroud's line ain't much better. I mean, we saw them make a trade earlier this week. The Browns picked up one of their players. And it's like, hey, I don't care how many talented receivers. Cincinnati's showing you this. If you can't block the man in front of you. Collins had 4 grabs, 79 yards. Woody Marks, the running back out of the backfield, had 4 catches, 50 yards, and a score to go along with his 69 yards and a touchdown. Nick Chubb had added 47 yards. He's slowly getting weaned out of there. And Woody Marks, the freshman the young rookie out of USC, is slowly starting to take over that primary position. The question is, how long is it going to be before Joe Mixon is activated? Stroud, 22 of 28, 2 touchdowns. Looked like shades of his old self, his rookie season. Looks like it's starting to come back to him, but I can't say that because, needless to say, every time this offense plays a elite defense or a pretty good defense, Stroud gets put on his back, and it's just not looking good. And I hate saying that about C.J. Stroud because he's my guy. Rookie Jaden Higgins continues to impress with that 24-yard touchdown reception from C.J. Stroud. Dalton Schultz had 5 grabs for 30 yards. And ultimately, this defense, which is just so good, Danielle Hunter had 2 sacks on the day. And the only 2 of the day, surprisingly enough, Will Anderson Jr. only had 2 tackles on the day and 1 quarterback hit. This is a defense that's going to absolutely crush you with that front 4. If you have a team that does not have a game breaker on that, that can get in that secondary and get in and out and find the holes, or you don't have a dominant offensive line, this defense is going to make you pay. It's that simple. And there's a lot of changes that need to be made in Tennessee, especially to that offensive line. I'm not yet going to say it's the coaching staff, but I'm on the verge of saying it because Cam Ward can't keep getting beat up like this. Your game plan has to change. And I was glad to see Houston making some changes, even though we won't be able to tell until they play another quality football team, which could be coming up in the next couple of weeks. But Houston's going to have to do something with their offensive line, much as Tennessee's going to have to, or this is going to be another a wash of a season. Because ultimately, when you look at this roster that the Houston Texans have on that offensive line, there are a couple of guys that are sitting on the bench on that old line that you just have to start considering giving an opportunity because next week they've got Baltimore, whom I've heard a lot of people talk about their defense. But then you got Seattle after they go into the bye week, which they could definitely use. Then you got Denver and Jacksonville with their improved defense. But I'm sure the Texans and DeMeco Ryans are going to get it figured out. At least we hope, right? Well. Looks like one team's offense finally reappeared, and that would be the Atlanta Falcons, who put up 34 after getting shut out last week by the Carolina Panthers, and the Commanders 27. Now, this game to me, it doesn't tell me a whole lot other than the fact that the Falcons can beat a team without their starting quarterback and starting number 1. Now, I will say this, in their defense, they did do something I did not think that they would do, which is they ran the ball. Somebody finally listened up there and said, and they split it. Robinson had 75 yards rushing on 17 carries. Algier had 51 yards on 16 carries, even though I think Algier should get... There shouldn't be no balance there, ladies and gentlemen. That would be the one mistake you're making, Raheem Morris. Algier should not get 17 carries, and Algier's getting 16. And then people say, well, he gets the receptions. Yeah, I know. He had 4 catches for 106 yards and a 69-yarder. Okay. This is a dude that needs to touch the ball at least 25 times a game. You full show. And I like what he looks like running the football. I think your offensive line is a lot better run blocking than they are pass blocking. But then you still have Penix, even though he threw for 313, 20 of 26, you did see a little bit more creativity in the passing game, and that was impressive. I think somebody mentioned Drake London being in the slot, and I think that was a great idea. 8 catches, 110 yards, and a score. And then they said something about him being able to get the corner was a much more efficient. And I'm talking about Bijan when you had Drake London in the slot. Kyle Pitts had 5 grabs, 70 yards, and a score. It's great to see them finally featuring this guy. I was sitting there thinking to myself, when are they going to use this guy? You were sitting there using Darnell Mooney and Ray McLeod, and I'm just like, these guys ain't no mismatch nightmare. And to the Commanders, I can't say too much because, needless to say, when you're Chris Rodriguez is running the football, 7 for 59. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, 7 for 47. Ultimately, Marcus Mariota is not your guy. And the reality of it is when you don't have Terry McLaurin as well as Jaden Daniels, it makes it a totally different, animal of Commanders team. Debo had 6 for 72 and a score, but that's a totally different, mindset that you're going into. You're looking at a team that their best player is not around, and that is not a good thing. So you ultimately have to say, okay, we beat a shell of this football team. And needless to say, when you go up 17-10, and then here we go with back-to-back interceptions, and you're able to only get a field goal and cut this daggum thing down to 8, and then, of course, the Falcons go back in, push this thing back up to 15. So now you go into survival mode. And, of course, with that, you go 11 plays, and you're able to get into the end zone via a 24-yard touchdown pass on 4th and 3 to Deebo Samuel. So, yeah, it was one of those where it was like, okay, let's see what we got here. And ultimately, when you look at this game and you see the Falcons do exactly what Mike Tomlin almost messed up and didn't do, the Falcons were smart enough to say, okay, let's settle for the field goal here. Because had they not, let's say they don't, it's going to be 31. It's probably going to be 31-27, and a touchdown by the Commanders is going to beat you. Let's say they don't. It's 31-24, and the Commanders have the football. Now they get to tie the game, even if that happens. So, in a sense, you look at a situation where the Commanders kick this field goal and it's 31-27, even though you finished the game off. You don't ever want to get in a situation where you're not taking the points. I admire that about Raheem Morris. Raheem Morris understands it's about taking the points. Now, there's times you need to take risk. I get that. I totally understand that. But I also understand that there are games where you have to feel those ebbs and those flows. You have to understand when you have to take the chance and when you have to say, okay, this risk is not worth it. I don't need to take this risk. But I think the Falcons responded admirably by basically, in a nutshell, taking what they saw last week against the Carolina Panthers and basically saying, hey, we gotta do this. And their offense looks so much better. Totally different from that shutout that they had last week against the Carolina Panthers, because it looked more like they settled on a run and they put Drake London in situations where he could be successful. And that's always the most important thing. Make your best player and even your best players. Because you can look at Bijan, Drake, and Kyle Pitts. Something that I have said many a times on this show. How can you have those type of weapons and not be able to kill it? There's your example. There's your example, people. But let's sum it up. Falcons 7 more first downs. Falcons had almost 200 yards more. Well, not almost 200. Almost 150 yards more of total offense. And they had the same number of turnovers, and the Falcons just dominated time of possession. They had the ball almost 10 minutes more than the Commanders. And the Commanders are going to have to figure out a way to run the football. That's just all there is to it. They're going to have to figure out a way to run the football, because there's no reason why that Mariota should be having to carry this offense. And they're not going to be very successful until Jaden Daniels gets back, if they can't get the running game back going the way it needs to go. But Falcons get even at 2. Commanders get fall even after that 34-27 defeat to the Atlanta Falcons, whom were shut out last week. Then we've got a game that many people, including myself, looked at and said, this wasn't finna be no game. And I'm going to be honest with you. Kellen Moore got these boys here to fight, and I was thoroughly impressed with the way the New Orleans Saints came out and battled, and it was precisely that. It was a battle. Josh Allen had 209 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, and an interception, despite being sacked 3 times. But James Cook had another great game, 117 yards and a score. And this is where I say, right now, Buffalo needs to coast. This is where, okay, James Cook, you wanted to be that dude. These are the games you're going to have. You know, we're going to have games where Josh Allen's just going to hand the ball off to you. Because, look, Allen threw the ball 22 times. He carried it 7 times. So, Allen basically had his hands in 29 plays, whereas James Cook had it in 22. As a team, they rushed for 165 yards. But then here's the other thing. This is where a lot of people know what Buffalo is not capable of doing, where their weaknesses are. Alvin Kamara, 15 carries, 70 yards. Kendre Miller, 11 carries, 65 yards and a touchdown. Spencer Rattler added 49 yards in there. So when you look at how this team was, you got to see a lot of Spencer Rattler, and that's always a good thing if he's running the ball. You don't want him out there just chunking it. Probably another interesting thing I saw was I'm not seeing Kamara as active in the pass game. I would have thought with Kellen Moore, you would see more of this. I was surprised we didn't see more of that in this game. Rashid Shaheed, 4 for 47. Juwan Johnson, 3 for 28. Brandon Cooks, 3 for 22. Chris Olave, 3 for 20 and a score. Now, this is what the Saints can take and learn from this. Even though they haven't won a game yet, they can take this away from this. Kellen Moore's got to get more creative. And I sound crazy saying it that way, but if Chris Olave's not getting open and it's not being easy for Spencer Rattler, you got to think about that. Khalil Shakir, 5 for 69 and a score. Keon Coleman, 3 for 45. Dalton Kincaid, 1 for 28 and a touchdown. Joshua Palmer, 2 for 25. And ultimately, like I said, you're seeing a masterful display by Josh Allen once again. Both teams had players with 3 sacks. Carl Granderson, Cam Jordan, and Brian Breesy each had sacks apiece. Joey Bosa, Daquan Jones, as well as A.J. Epinenza also having sacks. So, ultimately, you're looking at a team that is doing a phenomenal job with the pass rush. And honestly, this is going to be a team that's going to continue to do what it does. I was just impressed that the Saints were able to keep it close. If they could have done a better job in the second half of keeping Spencer Rattler away from pressure and possibly Kellen Moore doing a better job getting Alvin Kamara the football, possibly this would have been a different outcome. But the Buffalo Bills continue to roll at 4-0. And ultimately, this is going to be a team that if you find a team that can run the football against them, this is going to be a fun matchup, because ultimately looking at this game they had with the Saints was a lot of fun. And here's another one that looked like it was fixing to be an absolute straight up beatdown. I absolutely had it on my screens, but then I was just like, man, when I saw they got behind 24-6 at the half, I was like, man, this game finna get ugly. And that was when Baker Mayfield kind of came out and started doing his thing. But then everybody's asking the question, are the Buccaneers throwing that thing too much? And I don't know if that's necessarily the problem. I mean, I get it. You see Bucky Irvin's only carrying the ball 15 times in a game. But, ultimately, you look at the way this game played out. This game got out of game kind of got thrown off from the get-go when they had the block punt to start this game. So you're looking at a situation where you got a run and you got you actually had 2 runs on this drive. So I mean, I don't understand how people can say it's such a it's such a huge absolute that they need to throw it. I get it. That second drive they did just throw the football, but truth is, you want to mix things up, and I understand that. But I will say that was a mistake. You don't want to come out just because the first drive doesn't come down. You gotta basically say in a nutshell, hey, we're going to, start talking. That's not what you do. I think ultimately, because you see on this field goal that the Bucks were able to get on the board because they were running the football a little bit. To me, it's not just about running the football. It's about what plays you call. Because here's the reality: Philadelphia is a team you can gash. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like you can't. You can gash this football team. The Panthers showed that last season. And the truth is when you start looking at this and you say, okay, Bucky Irvin had 5 catches, 102 yards, and a score. Why is that? Because when you design offense, you need to design it with the mindset of, okay, what does this team want to do? Not just always about what you want to do. And when you see Bucky Irvin having that 72-yarder, a lot of that's because Philly's got their ears pinned back and they're saying, hey, we're coming. Let's go. And guess what? They basically say, hey, look, let's do this. Boop. Boop. And when you can do that, what that does is it says one of two things to the defensive coordinator. If he's got sense, I better watch out for this. Now, I'm not saying that most of these defense coordinators are going to go away from it, but generally, if they get burnt badly like that, there's going to be a sense of, hold up, pump your brakes a little bit. But my brother was exceptionally ticked off because there was a certain guy that's on his fantasy team that didn't do anything. And that guy would be A.J. Brown. And I've said many a times, the Philadelphia Eagles don't win pretty. I mean, look at this. They got 31 points, people. And Jalen Hurts had a total of 130 yards, but he had 2 touchdown passes. And then you got to look at Saquon Barkley having a touchdown of his own. And see, the most important thing you can look at when you talk about a football team is how they're capable of scoring points. And it doesn't matter whether it's conventional or not. See, you take that 6 off the board. You take that 6 off the board that Philly got from the block punt, and it's a whole nother ball game. It's a difference in the game. Yep. So everything matters. So a team that has generally been very good in special teams had that one mistake that ultimately cost them. But the Eagles go to 4-0 and continue to win in ways that the Kansas City Chiefs were able to win in that three-peat year, escaping by the skin of their teeth. And whether we like it or not, that's how they do it. Whether we like it or not, that's how they do it. Lions 34, Browns 10. In a game where the Lions could have looked a lot more dangerous, but they did not. And as we all know that Dillon Gabriel has been named the starter for this week, replacing quarterback Joe Flacco. After throwing 2 interceptions and throwing for 184 yards, I guess the Cleveland Browns finally realized that there was no more magic up Joe Flacco's sleeve. Jahmyr Gibbs, 15 carries, 91 yards, and a score. David Montgomery, 9 carries, 12 yards. So we understand that's the reason why you have 2 different backs with 2 different styles, because you want to be able to see which guy is going to have the hot hand. And David Moore and Jahmyr Gibbs are 2 totally different players. Some nights Jahmyr Gibbs has got it going, and then like this night, and then there's times when David Montgomery's steamrolling self has it going. Amon-Ra St. Brown had 7 grabs, 70 yards, 2 for touchdowns. And once again, you're looking at this and you're saying, how? You had 82 yards on the ground from rookie Quinshon Judkins and a score. And ultimately, Harold Fainin, the other rookie on this, had 2 for 24. David Njoku, 2 for 11. Judkins had 4 grabs out the backfield. Jerry Jeudy, 3 for 48. And Isaiah Bond, 3 for 58. So I think ultimately they're going to a guy who, for the most part, can give this offense a dynamic that it doesn't have. That being the ability to run the football and be able to distribute efficiently. without restrictions, that is. But then you look at the Detroit Lions, whom are they're just on cruise control. Even after their first loss, they're cruising right now. Aiden Hutchinson picked up 2 sacks. Alex Anzalone had a sack, and Hayden Hutchinson had 4 hits on the quarterback. So that's in itself is just absolutely unheard of. Flacco got roughed up pretty good, 9 hits total. Meanwhile, Goff only got hit 5 times and got sacked none. So, and that's impressive considering you've got Myles Garrett over there. But what do good teams like Detroit do? They neutralize your best player. And when they can do that, that's where you've got them beat. Although Goff did toss an interception to Denzel Ward, and Flacco's went to DJ Reed and Kirby Joseph. And as I said before, when you look at this Detroit team and realize just how good this team is now and how they're getting what they want on offense, and it's amazing to watch, because this is a team almost 3 years ago that we were they were in the dumps. They were totally in the dumps. It's amazing how a coach can change a culture and have this team at a point where it's now consistently named at one of the top teams in the National Football League, whereas the Cleveland Browns, they just trying to get it figured out. Just trying to get it figured out. Detroit 34, Cleveland 10. Cleveland has named a new starter, as I have alluded to. And no, it's not Shedeur Sanders. I know a lot of you are going to be disappointed, but I'm going to say it like this. Dylan Gabriel, don't sleep on the Oregon Duck, y'all. Don't sleep on him. And probably, arguably, the biggest upset of the week was the Jaguars taking out the previously unbeaten San Francisco 49ers. Now, the Jaguars go to a surprising 3-1, but you can't just look at the entire game and say, okay, well, the Jaguars were just better. No. Nick Bosa's injury is huge. It is a huge, huge issue. Because needless to say, and I think Mina Kimes brought this up on NFL Game Day, the 49ers defense was not able to get any pressure. They got a grand total of 0 quarterback hits on Trevor Lawrence for a grand total of 0 sacks. So needless to say, now I will say this, Jacksonville raced out to a 17-6 lead at halftime. Now granted, it was 3. Now granted, it was 3-0, but after that, I mean, you see, right after the second quarter, you get the fumble recovery in plus territory, and just that quick, Travis Etienne takes it. And I think a lot of people forget just how much of a game breaker this guy is. I don't understand the type of disrespect that this guy is getting. Etienne was a guy that you got to remember, the Jacksonville Jaguars took this guy in the first round in the same draft that Trevor Lawrence came in. So while a lot of people sit there and hate and say, oh, he ain't this and he ain't that, well, he was over 124 again. And a score. And then 3 catches, 42 yards. I mean, at some point, you can't keep hating the player. You got to hate the game. And to me, he is a huge reason why this Jacksonville Jaguar offense is going where it's going. Brian Thomas hasn't got going yet. Travis Hunter had a pretty good game, 3 for 42. And needless to say, when you start watching people, I was like, oh, they're talking about Travis Hunter. What did he do? They say he had a pretty good game covering. I get that. But I'm still not impressed until you get a pick, bro. I got to see. Devin Lloyd had 2 interceptions in this game. I'm like, this brother was all over the field. 8 tackles, 2 interceptions of Brock Purdy. That's a linebacker, y'all. You know what I'm saying? 6'3", 235. Out there just making plays. But, yeah, their pass rush was good, but to me it was what was equally as important was the fact that the Jaguars defense had Brock Purdy doing something that he hadn't been doing, second guessing. And then you look at it, that also the lack of weapons is doing it too. You know, McCaffrey has 6 for 92 in a score, but you know, Jake Tongs 3 for 58. Who is that? Ricky Purcell had 4 for 46. Kyle Juszczyk had 3 for 32, and Jawan Jennings. And guys, this is not good news for the 49ers. It's not. And like I said, this Nick Bosa injury is huge. Just when it looked like San Francisco was about to get back to that dangerous defense that is just going to pound away at you and pound you into submission, the injury to Nick Bosa, this is massive. I mean, and then you got that toe injury for Brock Purdy. What's that going to look like? It's a huge mess right now for San Francisco to go with Baltimore. Meanwhile, Jacksonville goes to 3-1, and they got greener pastures upon them. And like I said, people can say what they want about Trevor Lawrence. He ain't great right now, but Travis Etienne is looking great. And at the end of the day, it's not a matter of how great he looks as long as they're getting the W. Rams 27, the Indianapolis Colts 20. Both the previously undefeated Colts, I might add, fall in this game as Daniel Jones finally looks like the Daniel Jones of old. 24 of 33, 262, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. On the other side, you got the savvy vet, and it's crazy for me to sit there and say this because I seem like I've been saying Matt Stafford's name forever. Now he's like an old man. 29 to 41, 375, 3 scores, 3 sacks. Well, he was sacked 3 times. Kyren Williams was not nearly featured like I thought he would. Needless to say, I don't know if there was a reason behind this because ultimately Kyren Williams almost averaged 6 yards a carry, and I don't understand what the deal was with Stafford throwing it 41 times. And it's not like you were behind in this game, you know, as such, but I don't know. To me, this doesn't need to be a game where Matt Stafford is throwing the ball all over the yard. I'm never going to be I think you use Stafford sparingly, and that's the way it needs to be. I think you ultimately need to do it that way. That's the way I look at it from that standpoint. But to me, the most impressive part of this game was Stafford and the Colts going down, not Colts, the Rams going down the field and really pushing the ball down the field to get ahead in this game. You know, I know people are going to say, well, why would you say he did this and he did that if they weren't ahead? Well, you still need to run the football. And I think ultimately Kyren Williams had some really good runs in this game. And I think ultimately the Rams don't need to get pass heavy. They really don't. And what really tied this game down was, as you look, and that throw that Stafford had to Tutu Atwell, that was just a beaut. It don't get no better than that. I mean, he showed he still got that rocket for an arm. It still got some gas in it. And that was pretty much it. I mean, once that happened, it was good night. I'm just going to be honest. I mean, to me, Daniel Jones has never shown himself to be a game-winning quarterback. He just has not. And I think that came to fruition tonight. I'm not saying he's going to continue down this path, but I don't see it being I see the real Slim Shady, please stand up. Will the real Daniel Jones please stand up? Then we go to the game that everybody was looking forward to, and ultimately, I got to get this out the way real quick. Lamar Jackson was hurt in this game. So, when I've been saying this for years that Jackson's only had one major injury in his career, but this one here is going to really hurt the Ravens because at least with that one injury, you knew he wasn't coming back. With this one, you could be, okay, we got 3 weeks to survive, and he'll be back. But this one, to me, this game had all the makings of, what are y'all doing, Baltimore? And I don't know who it was that asked the question. I think it was what was it? Marcus Spears. Why are we not giving? I've said this on this show many times. Baltimore Raven fans, I've heckled y'all about it. Derrick Henry doesn't get the ball, you lose. It's just that simple. Justice Hill had 3 carries for 76 yards, had a long 71-yarder. My question is, are y'all scared that he's going to fumble again? I'm just curious. Because you don't get down 20-10 to the Kansas City Chiefs and you're the Baltimore Ravens. I'm just saying. And it can't happen. And I mean, even Lamar had a fumble in this game. What, we're going to stop letting Lamar run the football now because he put it on the ground? The truth is, what's happened to Todd Monken? I mean, this is a dude that was an offensive nightmare play calling. You look at this dude and you see, oh my gosh, how's he going to get me? How's he going to get me this time? It's death by 1,000 paper cuts. You got a nightmare at quarterback. And it's almost like he's walked in your ear and said, let me beat people with my arm. You need to go back to the days of when Lamar Jackson wasn't that elite thrower. Yes, I said it, he's an elite thrower. But what it is that you have to do is you need to go back to fundamentals. Go back to where Lamar Jackson was a guy that really couldn't complete a 5-yarder. Get creative. Stop trying to let Lamar Jackson win conventionally. What got you was the gadget plays. Now all of a sudden you're getting out of that, and what's happening? Defenses are relaxing. They're not looking for the conventional. They're not looking for the trick ways. They're looking for the conventional ways now. There's still such thing as outthinking the defense. It's just a thought. Kind of like what Andy Reid did to y'all. 25 of 37 from Mahomes. 274 scores. Only sacked once. Xavier Worthy had a game. Led the Chiefs in rushing. He had 2 carries and had a 35-yarder. Pacheco, 7 for 35. Kareem Hunt, 13 for 34. But they had combined 118 yards on 32 carries. You had 17 for 166. Kansas City came to play. Jerry Tillery, George Karlaftis had sacks apiece. Jerry Tillery, I didn't even know he was still in the league. Got 8 hits on Baltimore quarterbacks. I think Kansas City is in a good place to come back. Right now, Baltimore has got serious issues. Very serious issues. And I think they lost Marlon Humphrey as well, along with Lamar Jackson. 37-20 Kansas City. In a game that I ultimately did not see coming because I thought the Raiders looked like, and this looked like every freaking week, y'all, that the Raiders are ready to break down and do their thing. To me, it's looking like Geno Smith does not get what's going on out there. That's what it's looking like to me. This offense looks like it's too complex for him. Brock Bowers was the leading receiver, which is not a bad thing, but when Ashton Jeanty carries the ball 21 times, 138 yards, and a touchdown, I don't think there's any doubt that you need to get this guy the ball. And then Raheem Mostert had 4 carries for 62. So I think it was pretty obvious that you could run the football and win this game. This was a game where you overthought. 31 carries, 240 yards, and a touchdown. You should have been running out of this ball. 3 interceptions makes no sense. Caleb Williams, 22 of 37, 212, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. And I'm going to be honest with you, when when we look at Mr. CeeLo's keys to the upset, well, ultimately the Raiders would be ironically pulling the upset at home. Look at the total yardage, 357 to 271. But those turnovers absolutely kill you. 4 turnovers. You cannot win a football game if you turn the ball over 4 times. Unless the opposing team turns it over 4 times, and that ain't what happened. So, in my opinion, it wasn't so much what the Bears did. It was what the Raiders kept doing. Kept giving away the football. Ultimately, there needs to be a sit-down meeting because there's some disconnect there. And I think ultimately what it is, you've got Brock Bowers, and you don't have anything else that relates to a Jackson Smith-Njigba or DK Metcalf. You just don't have those things. Or Lockett. You don't have any of those guys. So ultimately there needs to be a sit-down meeting. Impressive win by the Bears, but I wasn't impressed with the offense. Caleb Williams is still looking like a guy that doesn't totally mesh well with what he's doing. Now, Rome Odunze is benefiting from it. 4 grabs, 69 yards, a touchdown. Cole Kmet had 3 catches for 46. And outside of that, there was really not much to talk. I see DJ Moore probably wanting out here. And the Bears probably, if they get to a point more than likely before the trade deadline, this guy will be on the trade block. I guarantee you that. DJ Moore is not going to be there. He'll be an asset that many people will be calling because he'll be 29 in a few years, and you don't want to keep letting this guy's best years go by, especially if you can get a huge return on it. Now, this crazy next game, y'all, I thought for sure that this was going to be a game that arguably the Cowboys were going to win during the game. But I thought the Packers were going to come out with their hair on fire. What in the heck has happened with the Packers, y'all? All of a sudden, the Packers went from looking so unbeatable. Now, all of a sudden, they look like a team that ain't going to get it done. Dak Prescott, 31 of 40, 319, 3 scores. He did this without CeeDee Lamb. Pickens, 8 catches, 134 yards, and 2 scores. Looking like that Pittsburgh Pickens, didn't he? Them Pickens is deep, ain't they? Then you look at Josh Jacobs had a good receiving night. 4 catches, 71 yards. This was a offensive game. This was a fun game to watch. Javonte Williams, 20 carries, 85 yards, and a score. It was great to see the Cowboys somewhat establish the run, or attempt to. See what happens when you attempt to establish the run, guys? You actually are able to throw the ball more efficiently. See what I mean? Josh Jacobs, 22 carries, 86 yards. Same deal with the Packers. The Packers attempted to throw it more, and look what happened. Good things happen, don't they? But ultimately, when you look at this Packers team, the lone sack for the Packers came from Micah Parsons. They could have used some other help, but I thought Dallas did such a phenomenal job attempting to keep him silent. They made it an effort to make sure he didn't take this game over. And the truth of the matter is, outside of that one sack, he was relatively quiet. Turnover-wise, I was absolutely surprised at what I did not see in this game, because ultimately when you watch this game and these two defenses, you thought you were going to see quite a few turnovers. Well, at least from the Packers standpoint. You thinking you're going to see some turnovers, which they've went down since that, what was that, Thursday night game, I think it was? Yeah, they've went down. This defense is looking more human all of a sudden. They're not looking like that dominant defense that we saw, I think it was on Thursday night. I mean, I feel sorry for the Commanders out there. I mean, they were just putting them on bed rest, and it's like, dude, that ain't fair. But outside of the turnovers, there was that one turnover, fumble recovery that the Packers had, but ultimately it was a pretty even game. Total yardage, they won by 60 yards, and The turnover was the only mistake that they had. The Cowboys got to clean up these these penalties. 11 for 95 yards. Time of possession was pretty even. So this game ending in a tie, was actually pretty remarkable. I still think ultimately this should have been a game that the Packers just kind of, I don't want to say they gave it away, but it was more along the lines that it's like, it almost looked like this defense wasn't trying. But then again, we give Dak Prescott so much grief that we don't realize this is a dangerous man. Just saying. We can sit here and call it what we want. Dallas ain't nothing to play with now. When you go in there with that attitude that you just gonna walk all over them, they can shut you down. Ain't no joke. They can shut you down. But ultimately, my final analysis of this game is Dallas needed this. They needed it to be a win. And Green Bay ultimately didn't need to lose this game because they go from a team that everybody was talking about was unbeatable to now they're looking like a team that, what the heck is going on? And they've already told Christian Kirk, take your time. They looking very mortal right now, y'all. Just saying. And before we do this game, guys, let's give a big gab out to Tyreek Hill, who suffered a major setback, guys. That thing was ugly. I mean, I know a lot of people say, why didn't you have send out our thoughts and prayers to any other player? Well, that was ugly. This is a situation that could end his career. They're saying surgery went well. I don't know. That was ugly. So, guys, think about Tyreek Hill in your prayers. Think about all the players, but especially think about him because that was an ugly scene, guys. You don't want to see a great talent like this. You don't want to see any talent, but this is one that could, we've seen it. It's ended guys' careers. They've never come back the same. Tyreek Hill ain't Tyreek Hill or the cheetah without his speed. So we hope for a full recovery, and we hope for a full recovery with all these players that are out. The ones that can come back this year and even the ones that can't come back. We hope they're able to come back and be who they are. I was just impressed with the fight Justin Fields and his team had. I think ultimately when you look at this game and you see that they said Aaron Glenn was really PO'd and when he talked to the media, I think ultimately you got to admit that the fight that they gave in the fourth quarter was worth it. And I know a lot of people will say, well, they should have been fighting with that the other 3.5 quarters. Sauce Gardner's got a point. There are things he's not able to get away with that he's been able to get away with for the last couple of years because they were winning. I'm going to say this. Defensive holding, pass interference, and illegal contact, there is such a broad margin. I'm dead serious. I've seen times where Herb Street and all these other guys will say, he didn't get his head around it. And it's like, that's great coverage. I hate the rule. I think this should be a universal rule that it's not a judgment call. I think if you call pass interference and the opposing team wants to throw a flag, that needs to happen. Or if you think that should be pass, because I've seen too many times where guys are getting draped all over, no call. Then in the next game a week later, the slightest tap, pass interference. And I'm like, really? Get out of here. But ultimately, I thought the Dolphins did a great job despite the injury to Tyreek Hill, who was having a pretty good game, 6 catches for 67 yards before that nasty, gruesome injury. Jalen Waddle, 3 for 48. Darren Waller, in his return, 3 grabs, 27 yards, and 2 touchdowns, which is what he did when he was a Raider. This is a good, big move for them. I think they'll be okay if they learn to incorporate him into the offensive game plan. If they can do that, this is going to still be a dangerous Miami team along with Devon Achane, who nearly had 100 yards rushing and a score. And I think somebody said it, that the Dolphins went from being this wide open offense to now they're being this offense that can run the football, and it's going to scare a lot of teams. Whereas you look at the Jets are supposed to be a team that's capable of stopping the run, and they cannot. But on the flip side, when you add Justin Fields and Breece Hall to this running game, big deal. And I think Braylon Allen got hurt in this game, if I remember correctly. So, think about him in your prayers as well. The other thing is Garrett Wilson's got to get the football. I don't understand why this is such a, eureka moment. But this guy's got to get the football. 6 grabs, 82 yards, and a score. He does some amazing things. I think he's one of the most underrated wide receivers in the National Football League just because we don't talk about him like that. He's not in that Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson conversation, despite the fact of how good he is and how he has nothing. I'm sorry to say that, but he has nothing on the other side of him. So teams don't respect anything else except him. But ultimately, what's got to happen is the Jets are going to have to get creative. But they cannot put the ball on the ground. And they had 3 fumbles in this game that they lost. That is not good. Now, despite the fact that Miami had 2 fumbles that they lost, and as I said, you cannot deal with that. You got to be able to hang on to the football. I just am a big opponent of that. You got to be able to hang on to the football. And then the way the Jets are, they don't get a lot of pressure on the quarterback, surprisingly. You got to be able to get to the quarterback, but then you cannot hold on. You got to hold on to the football. That's just the end of the story. You got to hold on to the football and be able to get pressure on the quarterback. But the Dolphins ended up with 2 sacks in this game. Rasul Douglas as well as Tyrell Dodson. But ultimately, this game was terribly dominated by Tyreek Hill's injury, and you'd hate to see that. All you can do is wish the best for him. The Dolphins officially get off the hook. The Jets are still looking for Aaron Glenn's first win. I think ultimately they need to stick to running the football and get creative ways to get Justin Field in the open field more, as well as getting Garrett Wilson the football. And finally, the final matchup for the Monday Nighters was the the Denver Broncos 28 and the Cincinnati Bengals 3. Now, many of you are going to look at me and you're going to say, okay, why are we even doing this game? Anybody that watched this game knows this was just a straight smackdown. Agreed. But unfortunately, when we look at a game like this, we have to look at several different areas. Denver finally was able to run the football. And listen, I'm happy for J.K. Dobbins, a guy that has had to come off of, I think it's 2 ACL surgeries. I'm happy for him. Because it seems like every time he was going last year with the Chargers and tore his ACL again. You're hoping that this guy can get it done and stay in a situation because he's able to bring Bo Nix where he is right now, because when he has a running game, he does well. 326 for him, 2 touchdowns, and he looked fluid. Great play calling by Sean Payton. I'm not a big fan of his, but I give credit where credit is due. Cortland Sutton, 5 catches, 81 yards, and a score. Marvin Mims, 6 for 69. Troy Franklin would have had more, but he had a ball go right through his hands. I'm talking about that. Yeah, you can't say nothing. That should have been a catch. But moral of the story is Bo Nix has got it going on. He's straight balling out. Even though you look at it, let me phrase it. He balled out in this game. They're going to need more of this if Denver's going to get back in this spot. This division is now up for grabs with LA losing this week. Cincinnati, on the other hand, they've got to get it figured out. I'm just being honest. I get it, no Joe Burrow, but you throwing up lobs is not a bad sequence, but you got to have something more. I get it. If you see them coming, throw it up there, but you got to throw it better than that, Browning. A lot of people are saying, "Oh, I don't agree with that." No. Look, I'm not fixing to sit here and give. Who was it? I can't remember who it was. It was checking. Who was it? 22? Is that who that was? That was checking him last night. Brandon Jones. I'm not fixing to give him props for checking T. Higgins when they're blitzing like crazy, and that was Brandon, and that was Browning throwing the football. I'll give him a little bit of credit because T. Higgins is a superstar, but he's got to throw the ball better. He got to throw it better. It's just that simple. And the Bengals have to come up with a better game plan right now because, needless to say, I'm gonna be honest with you. I've never been a fan of Zach Taylor. Never. I think the way this organization did, they should have had a Super Bowl and they should have been back to one. And, Al Golden's defense, it's not that it's that bad. It's just that there are situations where he just doesn't have the guys that he needs. And, of course, I'm defending our guy because he's a Notre Dame guy. But ultimately, this defense has got to make up for what this offense can't do. And right now, they can't protect. And the reason being is because opposing teams are saying, we're going to send everybody. This is where Zach Taylor's got to come up with the creativity to get people to back up. Ain't nobody scared of you because they're going to blitz you. You got to teach Browning how to throw the football. And where the location's going to be. That was the difference between Browning and Burrow. Burrow knew where Chase and Higgins were going to get the football. And they knew where the ball was coming. They don't have that with these two guys, with Browning. Browning had a good first game, got full of himself, and all of a sudden, they got film on you, bro. That same thing ain't going to work now. Congrats to the Denver Broncos getting back in the division. Congrats to Bo Nix for throwing for 326. Yeah, this was a stinker last night, and it had me sleeping. But, guys, that's going to do it for me. Let me know what you guys thought of week number 4 of the NFL. Let me know what games were great. Let me know which games that you disagree with me on. And let me know which games you thought I stretched it a little bit or just didn't know what I'm talking about. But remember, be nice. Especially you Ravens fans. I know where you are. Drop me a line below. Also, thumbs up and subscribe to the show so that you can get, and make sure you hit that bell notification so you can get all the notifications when I will drop another show. Finally, make sure you go to my Facebook of the same name as well as my Instagram at Mr. CeeLo so you can keep up with all my in-season shenanigans anytime. But until the next time, same Gab channel, same Gab platform.
But behold, there is a warm breeze that comes from the west. The blazing sounds of victory fuel their everlasting quest. It is a call to arms, for they are here. An army that has the will to challenge and the will to dare.
Whatever it takes to get in that end zone! Yeah,